This short film was shot on a recent school trip to the epicentre of European history for much of the past century, Berlin. The theme of this particular visit was the rise of the Nazis. Not only, however, do we take students to places that witnessed the Nazis' march to power, but also those where they consolidated it, celebrated military victory, and ultimately dragged the German people into total war and utter defeat. On the first day of our tour in Berlin, we used the city's well-developed public transport system and walk around the remarkably compact city centre sites. This saves money and is all a part of the experience.
One of the great opportunities coming to Berlin is to give the school that you bring here a chance to look at the rise of the Nazis in a fairly objective way. And by visiting many of the iconic sites, it gives the students a chance to hang the knowledge they have on something that will bring it back to them, particularly when they're taking their exams.
Federal taxes.
The first proper stop on our trip is the Reichstag, the seat of the German Parliament, which was not only connected with the rise of the Nazis, but will almost certainly be of continuing significance to students in their future lives. It is but a short walk from the rebuilt Reichstag to the Soviet War Memorial that commemorates the loss of tens of thousands of Red Army lives taking the ruins of Berlin in 1945. And so it's off to the Brandenburg Gate, which is surely the most iconic of all Berlin's historic buildings and a must for any visit to the city.
So are you enjoying the trip, Cameron?
Yeah, it's really good. It's a bit cold, but learning some good stuff, yeah.
What's been your favourite bit so far?
Probably seeing the Reichstag and the memorial down there.
That's nice. And what was your favourite bit, Tom?
Seeing the Reichstag, just like seeing all the pictures and getting like an idea of what it was actually like.
Nice. Have you learnt a lot?
I have indeed.
And are your tour guides amazing?
My tour guides are incredible.
I don't know what else to say.
Another short walk takes the group to Eisenmann's massive and disconcerting Holocaust Memorial, built on the site of Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister's bunker.
Impressions? Reactions?
Good.
Oppressive. Good. Oppressive. Any others?
Lonely.
Lonely. Very good.
I think Eisenmann was doing this, sort of captures everyone's feelings in one place, and it just sort of gets across how uneven and almost how trapped they were in there. Because once you're in, you feel like you're in there and enclosed in there, and you can't really get out.
So as we were warned when it was going to be below freezing, it has been below freezing. Students listened to the advice of the guides and they've dressed very sensibly. As we've been moving a lot, they've kept warm, they've had hot drinks along the way, so temperature really hasn't been an issue on our trip.
We've just come from the topography of terror, and it's Prince Albrechtstrasse, as was the home of the Gestapo during the Nazi period. Victoria, what did you learn from this?
I learned what the Gestapo did, because at school we learn about who they are, but we don't learn about what they did. And it will help me in more detail in my exam.
And I gather that your mock exam picked that up.
Yes, I need to add more details, because I got the general picture.
Glad it will help.
The aim of the trip is twofold, in my opinion. One is obviously to educate. These students particularly are looking at the rise and the effect of Nazism in Germany and in Europe in the 1930s. But it's also, there's a cultural aspect to the tour. And we're trying to introduce them to a different culture, Berlin culture in particular, a city which I personally find extremely exciting and interesting. And so it is all part and parcel of creating a more rounded experience for the students coming on these tours.
On this innocuous-looking site once stood Hitler's Chancery, the dark heart of the Nazi regime. But below this scruffy ground and car park lies the remains of Hitler's bunker, which he used in the last months of the war.
Erwidern und niemals vertagen und niemals verzweifeln. Es lebe!
It was here in April 1945, with the Red Army just hundreds of yards away, that Hitler finally committed suicide.
I don't really know how I feel about being up above like the Führer's bunker, because it's weird. It's like a weird presence that of all the different things that have gone on underneath this bit of ground. It's just all the horrible things that Hitler may have done to other people in Germany at the time.
How have you found our walking day so far?
Well, it's cold and my feet hurt, but I don't mind because I'm here with my friends and we're learning about history and it's really fun.
The walking part of the tour seems to get the thumbs up, but what about the public transport?
Yeah, I mean, it was a concern initially because we had a great turnout, 41 students who wanted to go, so concerned how it was going to go, but it was clear that the guides had done it many times before. It helped put all of the students into smaller groups with the staff. It was a good ratio as well. We had 3 guides and 4 members of staff, so that helped too. And in the end, it all went off without any problems.
And so, after a long day, it's off to the hostel.
Fantastic. I don't think you should call it a hostel. I think you should call it a hotel. I had visions of staying in a hostel, but when I arrived, I was pleasantly surprised by an absolutely beautiful building, fantastic staff, really good accommodation and excellent food. And you couldn't have asked for anything more. It was really good, and I would recommend it to anyone who wants to go and visit Berlin, not just a school group. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was so good. I'm hoping to take my family there next month.
On the second day of this trip, we used a coach to visit the sites around the outskirts of Berlin, including the Sachsenhausen concentration camp.
The next thing you have is a tripwire, which could have anything on it to make a noise. Then you have the concertina wire, i.e. the military style wire, and then you have the fence, which has electrified barbed wire on. And most people who ended up on that fence are people who found they couldn't bear what was going on in here anymore, and they committed suicide, committed suicide, basically going out and getting themselves killed by the guards.
Being here at Sachsenhausen makes you realise the torture and suffering of not just the famously persecuted people like the Jews, but also the British and even German people who were governed over by Adolf Hitler, and they were tortured by hanging them by their wrists on these wooden poles, staves, and they would dislocate their shoulders.
Inevitably, the most harrowing part of any visit to Sachsenhausen is to the relatively small, but nonetheless chilling, gas chambers and crematoria. Scarcely less grim was the Plottensee prison, where ordinary German opponents to the Nazis were executed in this room, which also made an appropriate place to hold a commemorative service and take time to reflect.
What did you think about the fact that we've just had a service of remembrance here at this memorial?
I think it was really important because it made to remember them, because they did do such great things and they're so brave. And you hear a lot about concentration camps, but I haven't really heard much about the prisons before. I didn't really realise what happened here. And I think it really helped to take a moment to just think about what happened in that room, because it is quite a horrible thing to think about. I think it's important. You need to face up to these things.
In a change of mood, our next stop was a visit to the Olympiastadion, the scene of the 1936 Games. But even this great world event was hijacked by the Nazis. However, all did not go according to plan for Hitler. Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals, thus exposing Nazi racial theory for what it was. With dust settling, our penultimate visit was to Grunoval Station, from where the Jews of Berlin were shipped to the concentration and death camps.
I have just noticed that 69 years ago from today, 15 Jews were taken from this train station to a concentration camp.
Our final stop was at the site of the Wannsee Conference, where the Nazis planned the final solution. Reading translation of documents relating to the Holocaust leaves absolutely no doubt as to the evil of Nazism.
I think the children have had a great time. They've thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Not only have they taken in lots of history, but they've also had the social aspect of spending time with their friends, going to a restaurant. They've taken the Christmas market, so they've had a really great time.